Good morning, Shalom. This is the morning moment. Just going to take a moment to touch on things that are going on. One of the things that has come up recently, and this is not the first example of this type of thing that the man has done, in particular has said, but you have many conservatives that still do listen to and like what Tucker Carlson does. I would not count myself among them. I have no spite or ill will towards the man, but as far as the sort of man he is and the things that he does and says, I do not support. And by the way, I would be classified as conservative, but well, we'll consider an example of why I do not support Tucker Carlson in any way, really. If he says something good, if it's true and good, I'm going to agree with it. But otherwise, I think it's time that conservatives just said enough. And a really egregious example that happened recently in this New York Times interview that took place. And the Messiah said that by their fruits you shall know them. Matthew 7:16. And we need to examine and analyze all these things through the eyes of the Christ. As disciples of Jesus, that's how we need to approach this stuff. And so I look at this interview, and there's a quote of his that is brought up in the interview. It's not just doesn't really seem to be a paraphrase. I mean, they're quoting him that he had basically pondered aloud whether or not Donald Trump was the Antichrist. Now, that subject is a whole other video. To keep it short, I will say, based on my studies of Scripture, the Antichrist is a type of person. It was a type of heretic that was actually around in the first century. It doesn't mean that there can't be other people that are against Christ, and that's essentially what the word means, against or opposite of Christ. But as far as there being one central figure that is, to come before the end of time and all this, I do not find that actually in Scripture. But that's a whole other video, a whole other discussion as far as eschatology and that sort of thing. But regardless, they bring up him calling Donald Trump the Antichrist, or wondering. He doesn't directly say, I think he's the Antichrist, but he does kind of ponder aloud, could this be the Antichrist type of thing? And he just straight up denies ever saying this. Now, that this video mashup is going around right now. You can find it pretty easily. There is very clear video and obviously audio to go with it, evidence that he very much did make this statement. And yet he's in an interview just blatantly saying that he never said it. When, we have the receipts, as they say, the blatant evidence is like, okay, here is you. I mean, was that your backup android doing the show that week or something? Is there a dual personality going on? Now, this is a clear example of how some in the media will blatantly lie. And maybe are at this point just lying so much that they're really not sure how to tell the truth. It's what we have going on here. Either he just has no respect for his audience at all and just thinks he can say and do whatever he wants to, or could there be some sort of early onset something going on with Tucker? Is there some sort of mental health issue? I mean, I suppose that's a possibility. If it's the case, then that needs some attention. Or, could it be that he's just so foolish he thinks he can just blatantly deny something that there is clear video evidence that he said, and just foolish enough to think that people are just gonna let it pass? And it does seem right now that there are some among conservatives that remember, this conservative pundit or talking head from how they were 2 or 3 years ago, and when they were, in many ways accomplishing good things, and they're kind of stuck with that version of the person in their heart and mind, and they can't see, they or at least are refusing to see that they've changed. And we see this with people that support Candace Owens, people that support Megyn Kelly, who was not necessarily always necessarily that conservative a person. Definitely some questionable stuff there, just going back a little ways into the past. But by their fruit you shall know them. He's clearly a liar, just a very blatant liar, and it's lying that's so blatant and so obvious that it either shows a mental health issue, complete foolishness, or just utter contempt for his audience. You have a good rest of the morning. Lord willing, be with you here in a little bit for the midday moment and, of course, for Tuesday tips. Shalom.